Hi, everyone. I'd like to give a warm welcome to my fellow women in engineering and their supporters. I'm Brandy Armstrong, the IEEE Oceanic Engineering Society VP of Professional Activities, and I've been working with Farheen Fazia, IEEE Oceanic Engineering Society WE liaison, to ensure that this panel becomes a regular affair at all important Oceanic Engineering Society conferences. Through our genuine engagement with IEEE Women in Engineering, we have each found mentorship, support, exceptional women whose stories continue to inspire us, and we hope to bring the same to you all here today. IEEE is the world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. IEEE Women in Engineering is a global network of IEEE members and volunteers dedicated to promoting women in engineering and scientists and inspiring girls around the world to follow their academic interests in a career in engineering and science. IEEE WE has more than 900 affinity groups in over 100 countries worldwide. Our goal is to facilitate the recruitment and retention of women in the technical disciplines globally. We envision a vibrant community of IEEE women and men collectively using their diverse talents to innovate for the benefit of humanity. IEEE WE strives to do this by creating opportunities for women in engineering to network, learn, and advance professionally by organizing workshops at major technical conferences, promoting member grade advancement, and administering programs to mentor young women. WE panels at ocean conferences play a pivotal role in providing women the opportunity to learn from their peers. This helps them to find mentors and collaborators, but most importantly, it helps them find inspiration. At this time, we have 3 former Ocean Student Poster Competition winners and 1 former judge presenting on how their careers have evolved since participating in the competition, including difficulties overcome, lessons learned, and successes and support received along the way. This brief introduction will be followed by their presentations. All questions will be held until the question and answer period following the presentation. I encourage you to actively engage with the speakers during the question and answer session by placing your questions and comments into the chat box. Please listen and enjoy and learn from their experiences of these women that they are about to share. Our first panelist of the day is Dr. Allison Penko, coastal engineer at the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory.
It's really an honor to be on this panel with these other 3 amazing and successful women. So I want to thank the Women in Engineering team and Brandy for inviting me to be here today. I'm going to briefly talk about my journey and really hope that it gives some sort of inspiration or maybe even comfort knowing that there are other people in the same situation as you, and maybe comfort in knowing that it's not always rainbows and butterflies, because it's not, and if somebody tells you it is, then they're lying. But as Brandy said, I'm a coastal engineer and I'm in the Ocean Sciences Division at the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in southern Mississippi. And I'm part of a group that measures and models environmental conditions near the coast. So in shallow water, like as you see here, you see sand ripples on the seafloor. And the information that we provide ultimately assists the Navy in making tactical decisions as part of their operational missions. And I study all the way from small scale to large scale, so from sand grains all the way up into sandbar migration and barrier island breaching, for example. And so that's what I do very, very briefly, but here's how I got there. It really started due to kind of an unfortunate situation in 2008, about 2 months before my graduate research fellowship ended. My advisor at the time at University of Florida came to me and said that he did not have funding to continue with me as a student. And so I was kind of at a crossroads. I either had to quit my PhD and get a job, or switch my advisor and or school, and I knew that would add about 2 to 3 years onto my schooling. Or a third option that kind of dropped in my lap was to move to southern Mississippi, work at NRL with a researcher who I didn't really know on a topic that was similar to my PhD topic. And so I'm a northerner. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and to be completely honest, I never pictured myself in living in Mississippi. But I chose to go there, and little did I know at the time that it was the best decision I would ever make. So I graduated in 2010 with my PhD in coastal and oceanographic engineering from University of Florida. And, but I did all of my dissertation work at NRL. So then I was hired as a full-time employee in 2011. I got a first author paper. I was awarded a project as a lead PI on another paper. And so I had really, really good momentum going until about late 2013, early 2014. And I had a journal article rejection. And it really did a blow to my self-esteem. Had a lot of issues then kind of picking back up and moving on. And then in 2014, baby number one came along and everything came to a screaming halt. I had a very difficult time mentally and physically with my mental and physical health during that time when my child was until he was about one years old. And I struggled a lot during that time with work, physically, in my marriage, everything was very difficult. And it wasn't until 2017 when I then got another paper published and I was awarded my second project as a PI. But as you can see, that's 4 years. And men don't typically have 4 years in between their or have a blip like that in their career due to a baby. So this is really something that the U.S. needs to take into account, especially in women's timelines, their career timelines. So moving on, in 2018, I was offered the chance to be a program manager at the Office of Naval Research through a detail, so 50% of my time. And I really struggled with the decision. My husband didn't want me to go. I was pregnant at the time. The position, it required a lot of travel. So I would have been traveling 1 to 2 times a month. And ultimately I decided to take the position. I'm so glad that I did. It's been an amazing, rewarding experience. But in July of 2018, baby number 2 came along. And this one, I'm proud to say, I bounced back much more quickly, let things roll off my back. He traveled with me because I was breastfeeding him and couldn't leave a newborn and a 4-year-old at home with my husband. And it was tough. It was really tough. I was either having to have him in hotel rooms and pump or bring him into daycare in different parts of the country. It was a tough time, but we got through it. And then I was awarded a large project in 2019 as part of ONR as the program manager of. But then in 2020 became our most challenging year yet, and I'm sure for a lot of you, because now not only am I a mom, a wife, a full-time employee, a mentor to all of my colleagues at work, or all my students and people at work, but I'm also a kindergarten teacher. Both my kids that are now 2 and 5 are at home with us. My husband and I both telework. We have a nanny that comes a couple hours a day to help with some things, which is helpful, but it's been an extremely challenging year. And it's been tough, and I have a lot of responsibilities at work and I drop a lot of balls. But one of the things that I did for this presentation was I sat down and added up some of the concrete quantitative stats here that I've accomplished over the last 10 years. And I highly recommend you to do this because it will likely surprise you and make you feel really accomplished. At least it did me, looking at all of the presentations that I've made and where I've traveled all over the world and all over the country. I did 8 months of breastfeeding, which is 15% of 10 years. I've spent 7 months of those 10 years on maternity leave. And so I started off by saying, I've only published 5 journal articles in 10 years. And after I did this, I thought, wow, I've published 5 journal articles in 10 years. So really look at the glass half full and see what all you've done. And you really are doing well, likely, when you all put it down on paper. So I want to leave you with my last minute with just some last minute thoughts, some words of wisdom, some advice that I have learned over the years that I wish I knew 10 years ago. One is find your champions and stick with them. Find the people that are your supporters, that are on your side, on your team, and challenge you, and stick with them, and make sure that you keep them close. And then do not waste your time on the ones that aren't on your side. Don't try and change their mind. Don't waste your energy trying to get them to agree with you. Just leave them be and move on. Think long and hard before changing your name. I threw this one in there. I changed my name very spontaneously, and it was a very emotional decision when I got pregnant with my first child, because I wanted to have the same last name as my husband. And it ended up being a huge pain in the butt for work. It messed a lot of things up in terms of, publishing, and at work. I work with my husband, so we were getting each other's emails. I'm just saying it could be for you, but just make sure you think long and hard about it before you make the decision. Normalize motherhood, especially in the workplace. I say this all the time. I talk about breastfeeding around my colleagues. I talk about my kids around my colleagues, because that is me. That is who I am, and it's a part of me. And yeah, I may have to leave work to go pick my kid up from school because he's sick, and you have to make it normal in order to change the culture here. A very wonderful mentor of mine told me once, it's okay to drop balls, just know the ones that you can't. This is how I live my day-to-day life. You're gonna make mistakes. Just admit them and move on. Don't spend a lot of time on them. Learn from them, but just move on. And drop the balls that you can drop, but don't drop the ones that you know you can't. Know your team's strengths and weaknesses as well as yours. This is, I think, a large part of why I've been so successful, and it's because I know what I suck at, and I hire people that are good at the things that I'm not good at, and then I delegate my tasks. So this is a really good way to build your team. Just know you and your team's strengths and weaknesses. And then the most important one, it is a tough world out there, especially now. Give yourself some grace. Make time to do what makes you happy, and see the glass is half full. You are doing the best that you can, and know that you are enough, and tell yourself that every day. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to your questions after the panelists speak. Thank you.
Our next panelist is Dr. Malika Maggiani, Assistant Professor at Singapore University of Technology and Design.
Thanks, Brandy and OES, for inviting me to this panel today. I'm really inspired by my fellow panelists and excited to share my journey with you all. I'm an early career professor at Singapore University of Technology and Design. My journey started in India, where I was born and brought up, and I did my undergraduate studies. My journey in field robotics specifically started in Canada, where I pursued my master's and PhD degrees. During my PhD, I was fortunate enough to be working in a lab where they were building underwater and surface marine vehicles. Here I got interested in research domain of multi-robot coordination, search, and planning, specifically in applications of coral reef monitoring and search and rescue applications in marine domain. After my PhD, I applied for a postdoctoral fellowship under Singapore MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, where I was fortunate enough to lead the lab of researchers for developing mobility on demand systems, specifically developing applications for self-driving car. And now, as an assistant professor, I continue to work in these domains and build autonomy and algorithms for multi-robot coordination, and do the planning under uncertainty sort of research in there. So today I would like to share one specific project, which is about coral reef monitoring. And I am sharing this project specifically because it beautifully highlights the interdisciplinary nature of field robotics. Here we were not only developing heterogeneous robots which could fly, be on the surface, and as well as swim underwater. But we were also developing an interdisciplinary team of students, researchers from as diverse field as marine biologists to electrical engineers, electronic engineers, hardware engineers, and software computer science engineers. This project brought us together to sort of seamlessly develop a front end for coral reef monitoring. But along the process, I learned a lot, not just by this particular application, but field robotics or field trials in general, that we need to practice a lot before we go out in the field. Especially in the case where some of these field trials are really expensive or risky at the same time, and you might not get enough instances to do that. So practicing before you get out on the field was very important, and it would bring diverse set of skills from various individuals together to make things happen. Another way I learned a lot, or like another way to have an early start in marine robotics field, if that's something of interesting to you, is to participate in competitions that allow you to get started. This is the video footage from Singapore Autonomous Underwater Vehicle Challenge, where students get to design, develop, and deploy their underwater vehicles, and sort of compete not only locally but also at an international level. So if you get an opportunity to participate in challenges like this, I would highly recommend that. Some of my lessons from marine robotics research is make sure you do your logistics very well, because even a single nut or bolt missed out in the field can become quite expensive and might jeopardize your field trial. Make sure your platforms that you want to deploy are easily deployable without much of external help. Another thing which is very critical is real-time feedback. When you're deploying these field robots in a large scale, it's very important to sort of have a health check on them through real-time feedback. And make sure you have user-friendly designs, because we have several instances where we deployed our robot after 20 minutes of dive to just realize that we have actually not started the code that we wanted to do. And a user-friendly design would really help to reprogram on the go. Lastly, I would like to emphasize on the very important and a most critical part is the multidisciplinary team, which can help you not only technically, but also support you morally. So during your grad school, if you are like me, you might have lows and highs. And during my lows, I went back to something I call creative vents. This is where you can sort of regain your energy and then come back to your research with a fresh perspective. And for me, that was outreach initiatives. I was very actively involved in Women in Engineering initiatives at McGill through, say, like one of these events, which you can see here is a 3D printing workshop, We also did events for high school students to introduce them to STEM field, and this allowed us to mentor them and train them. So I'm not only grateful to my own mentors at McGill, but also the students that I got to mentor, because they taught me lessons and I learned a lot both ways. I would like to emphasize on this fact that something that really helped me was to build a support structure, and this support structure not only was my family and friends, but also it went beyond that. And when I could build connections with the community at large, I found a lot of strength in that. Some of my own lessons learned is that I would like to share with you, and I would like to leave this as my last slide, is to know yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses, follow your heart, because your heart will take you through your strengths, get your hands dirty early, grab the opportunities that come along the way, and make sure you have these creative vents to bounce back and bring the work-life balance that you are seeking for. And with that, I would like to thank everyone who was involved in my journey and helped me reach where I am today. And with that, I would like to take any questions that you might have during the end of the session. Thank you so much for your attention and time.
Our next panelist is Dr. Nina Stark, Associate Professor at Virginia Tech.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Stark. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Virginia Tech, and my research is focused on looking at sediment transport processes from a geotechnical point of view, as well as on developing new methods and approaches for geotechnical characterization of challenging coastal environments. As you probably can tell from my accent, so I am not originally from the US. I'm originally from Germany, where I also pursued most of my education. I received a master's degree in geophysics from the Westphalian Wilhelms University in Münster. And then I did later a PhD in marine geotechniques at MARUM at the Center for Marine and Environmental Science at the University of Bremen. In between, I had the option to work as a research assistant, a non-degree seeking research assistant at the University of Hawaii. So at that time, like a few items or a few aspects that really guided my career were getting into the field and getting on research cruises. So that's something I still very much enjoy. I love going out in the field, testing new techniques, trying to figure out things, measuring things, even if it sometimes doesn't work out the way we want. But this is really something I truly enjoy, and the opportunity to do that during my education was really a driver for where I wanted to go with this. Another key aspect, you see that I put my main advisors during that time here also on this slide, and they were really great mentors. They have been very different in their mentoring style, from being much more guiding towards much more expecting more independence, as well as very different in their communication. But overall, I feel that was really a key thing, how the mentorship like guided me, helped me open up opportunities. That was probably a key part in my career. Another key part was actually having the opportunity to pursue some research abroad, going to different places, not only into the field, but really across the world into the field, or to visit different academics and just experience how practically working in the same field could be very different in different places. And then I started doing my PhD, also going to conferences. Actually, my first conference was the MTS IEEE Oceans in 2009 in Biloxi, where I had the pleasure to also meet some of my fellow panelists here. And it was a great conference for us young folks in the poster ward. It was for me a a real eye-opener to have the opportunity to talk to so many other students who are in a similar situation. They're maybe in a totally different place where things work very different. They may be working on very different aspects of the field, but just seeing all these different pathways, these different things people are passionate about, and just enjoying the communication and really just hanging out also with great people and talking about the work you do as well as other things. So that was really, for me, very career driving. I then followed up with a postdoc and another postdoc at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. That was with LIK and the Department of Physical Oceanography. And so you can see that I moved quite a bit between disciplines, what now may be seen as a really great advantage, but at that time, it was not that common. And to be honest, it was not very driven by a big plan. It was more driven really by that I really enjoy these things. And I like to shift around a little bit in the perspective and in the methods, how we're tackling things. And at that time, I would say I was still not very decided on if I would want to do academia, industry, or maybe a federal agency. Probably I was at that time mostly inclined to working at a federal agency. But then going to Canada and seeing again like a similar but different academic system. Alex had a very open door policy, a lot of communication of the students, while also independence, and I really enjoyed that. And I think that was the last little bit that I needed to drive me to more towards academia. And on top of that, Virginia Tech had at that time a position where they were looking specifically for someone who could bridge geotechnical engineering and coastal science and engineering. So that was a really perfect fit. So looking back at this and thinking a bit more about what were really the key aspects that impacted my career and that were guiding where I went and what I did. And so one thing that has always been very important to me is like, do something you enjoy. I hope that message really came across, that I don't think there was much career planning in my career, but I practically followed things I was excited about. And I truly believe that I was good in it or good enough in it because I really enjoyed it. Embracing challenges. So there's a lot of challenges on the pathway, small ones and big ones. Small ones where you just may go to places that you are new and things are working different, and they can be frustrating because you haven't figured it out yet. And there's just so many obstacles, or big ones where just something is really hard to figure out, or there's just like limitations that are hard to overcome. So there are challenges, but these challenges also can really drive you forward when you can actually tackle them and sort them out. Supportive mentors are really important in my opinion. I was lucky to have a number of supportive mentors that really maybe were not like the most diverse group, but never made me feel that I would be different, or so that's really something I truly appreciated too. And then an open mindset. Sometimes things work different and turn out different than you expected, and that can be surprising. And sometimes you just have to be open-minded about it. And then it is hard work, and I think that's just something to realize, that you have to work for it to get where you want to get. But so there are some caveats with that. So while I really do something I enjoy, there's also certainly hard times and things that you don't like so much. And I think that's just something that every job brings along. And I think that's just something you have to accept and get over with. While these challenges are there, sometimes they're really big. And I think it's important that you don't tackle them then alone, but that you have a good team, that you have great mentors, that there's a pathway to tackle them together. Supportive mentors, but they should challenge you. They should not also only pat you on the back, but also put challenges in front of you to bring you more forward, to get you to new places. And then open mindset, but don't go down the rabbit hole and get lost in all these things, but that could be, but also trust what you know and establish a base from that. And while we work hard, we should also play hard. I'm a very strong believer in a good life-work balance, and I think that is really something that I want people to take away from this. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm happy to take questions in the Q&A round. Thanks.
Thank you. Our final panelist is Dr. Ruth Perry, Marine Scientist and Regulatory Policy Specialist at Shell Exploration and Production Americas.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about my career today, and thank you to the societies for setting this up. So as you can see, I'm going to talk a little bit about going from a grad student to a marine scientist, research scientist, postdoc, to working in the energy industry to policymakers. So I've gone through this crazy realm that if I looked back and my former self would have thought I would have been sitting in a tenure track, and I've completely gone a different direction with my career. So I think my first word of advice is don't believe where you think you'll go, because it's going to change, and take the opportunity to explore this and learn about things, because we never know where we're going to end up, but sometimes we're in the right place because it's the right thing sometimes we're in the right place because that's where we should be. So my career at a glance, I don't want to go through all this, but I really want to point out something that I think people struggle with, and I've seen this from some of my mentoring, is there's still this assumption that you can't be in the same place, especially if you want to go into a career in academia or just a graduate career generally, research career. But I've shown that isn't true. If you are happy in one place, then focus on expanding your skill set in that place and all the opportunities it provides. So this was partly a personal decision, but also a professional decision to stay at Texas A&M. I had a really bad experience in my master's degree. I had a really poor advisor. He wasn't supportive. He was a challenge to work with, and I didn't know that going in. I had taken a class from him, and he was a much better teacher than he was an advisor. This, I think, is persistent in a lot of the academic institution, and so that's something I'm really passionate about when I mentor, is how do you get through those types of things? And so what I did is I focused on working with other students and working with other professors and bringing good people into my committee that could help me get through the bad without getting sucked into the drama of all of that. And I was able to get a path to finishing. And so sometimes it's not easy to get out of those things, but focus the energy elsewhere, and find a way through and just work toward, stay focused on that pathway to get through. And because of that, I actually found a really great PhD advisor who brought me into his group, something totally different, just based on focusing on classwork and building relationships. And I jumped fields even, which was scary, but it all together worked. And then focusing on the service side, and I don't mean like jump in and give back, but Marine Technology Society in Biloxi in 2009 was my first poster competition, presentation competition as a grad student. And I really liked MTS because it wasn't traditional science, right? I was in physical oceanography, I was new to it. I also wanted to do these different things around outreach and STEM education. And so this society was such a broader range of the oceanographic community that it really showed me an opportunity to build my professional network, but also be a better scientist in terms of how I communicate my results to different range of audiences, not to my peers in my particular bubble of physical oceanography. And then I went over to NOAA, and then I got into this rut of, I was being successful in postdoc, publishing, funding, but I wasn't sure about the next step. I thought I would be on the academic track, tenure, but when I got to that point, I wasn't personally ready to go back into the situation I just had for the last 7 years and working at that level, and I wasn't feeling it. And so I focused on, talking with my network, with my professional network, my friends, and I'll come back to my friend network. My husband, everybody, I just wasn't feeling it. And everybody was saying, if you're not feeling it, try something different. You can always go back to that if it was the wrong choice. And this opportunity at Shell fell in my lap, but it was really risky. It was a 1-year contract. It had all of these different things that sounded really shiny, but I wasn't really sure. And it was the energy industry, and I had never had experience with that. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't want to be a corporate person forced to do one thing. But I gave it a try. It was the right thing personally. My husband has a PhD, and so we have to base our careers off one another, and he was in a good spot. And he wasn't quite ready to do that switch, and he wasn't going to do it if it wasn't something that I was like fully committed to. So I wasn't fully committed to the Shell thing or tenure, but I took a leap with the Shell thing, and hey, it turned out to something I absolutely love. So you never know until you try it. Sometimes those risk opportunities are the best thing. So just a couple lessons. You will have good bosses and mentors and bad bosses and mentors. Focus on how to get away from the bad without getting sucked into the drama, and use your network, use your relationships to help you navigate that. The worst thing you could do is get into the drama. Just focus on your work, focus on your integrity, the quality of the person you are. Use your networks to move away from it, and learn from those bad situations or individuals. Don't become that. And then enjoy the good, right? It will get good. There's hard moments, embrace them, but there will be positive moments. So really just, focus yourself on where you want to go. And I know that sounds a little like self-help, but it's true. And the good will help you get through that. Use those good relationships. And I will say there are a lot of bad ones in the corporate industry. There's a lot of drama, but there's drama everywhere, right? So there is no perfect place. So just really focus on yourself, your work, and the people that are good and understand who you are. And I think Allison hit that much better than I did, but we can talk about it more in the discussion. If you are in the academic community and you want to do something different, fund yourself. Like my PhD advisor, as good as he was really skeptical about all these different things I wanted to do and be interdisciplinary. But I went out and got the funding myself, including the MTS funding, Sea Grant funding. So I showed him that I had the funding to do these things and built it into my PhD to make it what I wanted it to be, to own it. And because it was what I wanted, I was much more passionate about it, and I finished much faster than I probably would have. And that actually brought some things back to his group that he became really passionate about too, because of my passion. So fund yourself, challenge yourself. So explore different opportunities, talk to different people, join group, talk to people that work at an aquarium, conservation community, just really build your network. And so even though I'm in the energy industry, I have professional network everywhere. And so that's really helped me learn that where I might want to go, where I don't want to go, and also unique opportunities to work together with different people in my network. Networking is not just professional, it's also personal. My husband and I don't bring work back home. I don't even talk work with my ride or die friends. because no one understands it, right? So they can help you, you know, on the periphery, but really focus on building a friend network, a professional friend network, because they understand what you're going through. They've gone through it themselves. I have a wide range of professional friends that are true near dear work friends, but they've helped me so much in my career, and we've helped each other. So that's not professional in the sense of, you know, networking necessarily, but it's really about building those relationships. And then it's going to be hard, but it's going to be just as good. And Nina said it great: work hard, play hard. I add relax hard because I'm a type A. So I would say really know yourself and what you need to be most productive, and that will show in your work. And be honest about that, to yourself, but also to the people you work with. So I always have conversations with my manager when there's hard moments or the bad moments, and what I need to do to fix those for myself, because then I'm most productive in my work. And so it's really also about knowing yourself. So I hope that was a little bit helpful, and I look forward to talking more during our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. So I want to thank you all for inspiring us with your experiences.
So Catherine says she's so glad that it was mentioned about male colleagues thinking that maternity leave is some kind of vacation, right? And so the idea that, you know, we're going to normalize this. How do we normalize maternity leave and just having a family, or having even work-life balance, right, for women? And I know that one of the things I've read about recently with the pandemic is that women feel like they're being judged more harshly right now on their performance, right? And how much of that is real and how much of that is, you know, in our heads, right? So we'll start with Allison, since she was the one who brought that up.
Well, yeah, I definitely feel it's very different during this pandemic, right? But I definitely feel more judged now. I also feel like I am juggling 800 tasks at once. And I think the biggest problem that we're going to have to deal with coming out of this pandemic is that a lot of my male colleagues, and even my older female colleagues that have grown-up kids or kids not in the house, they're all saying, oh, I love this. I get to telework. I get to work all the time. I'm being so productive. It's awesome. And so you have that half of people, and then you have the people that are at home with kids and doing, you know, being kindergarten teachers and being teachers to their kids and childcare, and it's just a big mess. And those people are really struggling. So I think there's going to be a major divide, and I'm not sure how we conquer that going forward.
So does anyone else want to jump in on that? I didn't hear anyone else say they had kids, so I didn't no. I have kids. My child luckily is in daycare right now, really expensive daycare. But until the daycares opened back up, it really was a struggle to try and work from home and have, you know, a 4-year-old who really wants your attention all the time. So there was a second question that was there and then disappeared, but the question was, you know, for Ruth, how do you balance your oceanography and sort of the environmental message, right, and working at Shell? Because most people, like you were saying, working for the energy industry, a lot of people see that as sort of the big bad energy industry, right? But I know that your job actually is to actually help them to do better, right? Like that is part of your job.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brandy. And I like how Alice used Dr. Ruth. That's a running joke with a lot of my friends, because the ocean Dr. Ruth, not the other Dr. Ruth. But yeah, it does. As I have core values, as everybody does, in terms of what's important to them, and it does. But that's part of the reason that I think Shell tried to stretch out and bring that in, because sometimes that conflict is a way that we can generate process in the policy side. But but my conservation is based really on getting the science and data and information, and what that shows us is happening, then that's the reality. It's supported by the data and science. And so then I can take that back and try to improve what we're doing and how to do better. The conflicts can range in the energy industry, but they don't want the impacts that come with it. And so how do we work through those? And so I turn it into a challenge, and working, like I said, with new groups on kind of unique science and data and monitoring opportunities that Shell can use to inform its decision making, that the academics and the government communities can use for management, and the conservation community can work with. So we actually have a lot of partnerships, and all of those have various ranges of NGOs, from people that, you know, do not like oil and gas, and they want to see better methane detection science, to how do we ensure that we're not going to harm North Atlantic right whales when we construct wind farms. So I've turned it into a challenge, but yeah, there are always things where you'll have conflicts in your values, but I would say I've never had anything to the point in Shell where I've had to sacrifice my values because I work for Shell. If that makes sense.
Thank you. So the next question, and this goes to everyone, can you talk about the balance at home needed to make it all work, sharing responsibilities with spouses? I know I personally struggle with this a lot. Again, I'm not sure, I heard several of you mention spouses, but even if you don't have spouses, you could also, if you have family that you're dealing with, you know, if you can address from any of those angles. Does Allison want to start?
I can start. I have a lot of opinions on this, but I'm pretty lucky that my husband is very involved in taking care of the kids. And when this pandemic first started, we were both teleworking 8 hours a day, and then we had both kids at home. So we literally split things down the middle. He worked mornings 2 to 3 days a week. I worked mornings 2 to 3 days a week. And so we were solo parenting and working like 16 hours a day. But it was, it's been a challenge, but it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of working together. And then we've just kind of figured it out from there. But we do pretty much split things down the center in my household. So even to the fact that, like, I'll, you know, mow the grass one week and he'll do the grocery shopping and cooking one week. So we're lucky.
Yeah, the balance, it's funny because I'm on the road 90% of the time for my job. And so my husband was only used to seeing me from like late Friday night or Thursday night from the airport to like Sunday morning. And so we were kind of in that routine. So it was actually funny because we were relearning how to be together all the time. And I'm not saying anything that was bad about our relationship, but like the dynamic changed, which is, I think, what Allison was saying. And it just makes me laugh because it took us like a good 6 weeks to kind of fall into a new dynamic. And then the same, we have to balance it out. Now, we don't have kids, so I try to offer up, you know, the ability to help my friends that have kids because I know how hard it is. And for whatever reason, in this COVID environment, we seem to work more. And I didn't realize how much I needed decompression time, you know, just from house, personal life, work life. And that time sadly was on airplanes. But I had to like recreate that because I'm home all the time. So it's a challenge, but you have to find what works with you. And I don't think there is one perfect fits the answer for everybody, but certainly been interesting.
So does Nina or Malika, do you have a?
Yeah, I think for me a really important thing is communication. I would say my husband is also my best friend at the same time. He knows a lot about my work because I tell him about it all the time, and he actually sometimes even helps. Right now, he's trying to wrangle our dogs here so that they're not disturbing the call. So I think we are a really fantastic team, and to be honest, that makes also some things in my job possible to have a private life. As I mentioned, like this life-work balance is really important to me. And my husband is a really, really big part of that. He practically makes that possible. And I think an important part is that we really communicate about it, and that we are talking about what we both, he has also his own career, is very successful, and then we talk about what we want to do, where we want to go, and we are really supporting each other. And I feel very lucky that works out between us like that. But yeah, I would say it actually is a big contribution to making things possible for me.
So Malika, do you have an opinion?
Just a quick add-on, I think, like for what works for me, I think just play with each other's strengths. There might be certain things that one is more feel more comfortable with, like be it cooking or like any outdoor activities. So I think like once we identified our strengths, it became much more easy that some certain things come naturally to you, and you find it much more easier to do that. Like for me, I like washing dishes because I actually read a paper while I'm doing that. So I just take that up, and then like my spouse finds cooking very relaxing for him, so he takes up that. So whatever works best, like I think communication is a very important factor in there, and identifying your strengths to come up with the right mindset is very helpful in that case.
So next I'm going to combine two questions about networking. So how do you go about networking, for instance, when you're at a conference and it seems like everyone already knows everyone else, right? And you're just trying to break in. And then once you have that professional network, which Ruth was talking about, having these professional friends that you can talk to, right? How do you keep in touch with them? Do you send them Christmas cards? Like, how do you keep that a strong network?
All right, well, I'll tackle that. So some of my best friends are my work friends. And I would say I keep in touch with them because I call them or text them every other day or see them. So I think, and maybe she can tell me if I didn't get this right, but I think what Ruth was saying is that you need to have friends within your workplace or within your profession to get those conversations and have those conversations with somebody who gets what you're doing. I agree with Ruth. Like my best friend from kindergarten she's like, oh, I know you work in the Navy, and I'm like, oh, well, okay, kind of got it right, but but it's those work relationships that I agree with Ruth are extremely important. And yeah, you keep in touch with them by just calling them, texting them, emailing them. And I talk with them about personal things as well as professional. As for the conferences, it is tough. I'm an extrovert, so I don't know if one of these women are introverts that could touch on this question a little bit. So I naturally just like talking to people and going up to people, and I'll just go up to somebody and start talking to them, especially after I've seen a presentation, and just start talking to them that way. I think at conferences, there's really a lot of opportunity to break the ice with people that way, because you've just seen a presentation or a poster. But as an introvert, I'm not sure, I can't really help with that.
I'm a social introvert, so I save it all up for the conference, but I'm usually exhausted afterwards. I have to recharge. That's where my like relax hard comes in, because I need my solo time to kind of recharge. But Allison's right. Like I think I mean, the three of us, and I've judged with Malika too at other MTSs, but we, you know, that was actually one thing. I see a question from Dick Kraut and Lori were like, you just need to go meet people. And then the poster session was set up in a way that everybody came by anyway. So sometimes you just have to go for it, and other times, you know, look for something like the MTS opportunities, IEEE, where you're kind of out of your element because people want to come learn. But I don't know, it's a little bit of it's acquired and just feeling confident and comfortable to do it. But I've never had anybody who said like, I don't have time to talk to you because I kind of jumped up and came to them. So I think it's just having the confidence to do it. And oddly enough, bathrooms and coffee carts and stuff at conferences are a good way. Beer carts to just connect with people like while you're waiting on something. Found that helps sometimes if you don't want to jump into right at someone after their talk.
I totally agree with everything that has been said. And also I would add to that, I mean, if you're in a starting out position in your career, don't be shy also talk with your advisors and mentors about that. So for example, in my group, we started out at some conferences that we actually always do something like a social event. Funnily, often we go stand-up paddleboarding and we invite other groups, and they with the professors, with the students, and so that is a great opportunity. And so I would just add, I mean, that don't be shy to talk also about that with your mentor and advisor, and point out, in case they're not doing that, that it would be really helpful if maybe if they go for dinner with their networking friends that you would be interested in joining. And I think that's a great opportunity then.
Quick add-on too, sorry. What I found very useful was like if you feel like the network is too close and you're not able to get in, but there's certain, like, I mean, all those people are humans too, and they have similar issues. So if you open up and be vulnerable to the idea and like just share your challenges that you're facing, like saying that I really need help in this area, I think nobody is going to say no to that. And I think that can be a good conversation starter regardless of who the person is. So I think just opening up, you'll surprise yourself that it opens up so many doors in turn. Yeah.
So we have about 4 minutes left and way too many good questions. So I'm gonna choose the one about imposter syndrome, because that's something I personally have dealt with in my life. So have you ever felt like an imposter, and what did you do to overcome that?
I always feel like an imposter. I always do. What helps me overcome it is doing something like this. And like I said earlier in my presentation, like writing down everything that you did. What helps me also, of course, is, you know, getting feedback. I'm very fortunate to have a very good supervisor, and he tells me all the time when I'm doing well, and, you know, points out the things that, look at what you're doing, this is great. And so that's really helpful to have that supportive, good feedback. But it's something that I deal with every day and have to tell myself every day. The other thing that's really helped me a lot lately is taking on more mentoring roles, and seeing kind of how I seeing myself in some of the people that I'm mentoring, and knowing that I can give them advice that can help them. That's also been a really good reinforcer to help me with the imposter syndrome.
I totally agree with the mentorship thing. The more people that you can mentor and help, the less you feel like an imposter, because you know that if you are helping other people, you must be doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone else? We've got 3 minutes left, and I've got my little closing spiel, but any other thoughts on imposter syndrome?
something quick that helps me is as Alison mentioned, that journaling or like keeping record of what's been done. I think another form of it that I like to do is put my stuff on the website, on my own website. And then like when I'm low, I just like go through my achievements and like I feel like, okay, I'm here for a reason, I guess. So yeah, that helps too for me.
Well, I really thought this was a great discussion. I'm getting lots of comments about the wonderful panelists that we have today. So thank you all for being here.